And good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Lynch. I'm the city manager for the city of Newton Falls, Ohio, and this is our COVID-19 morning update. It's a chance for us to learn some of the local aspects of dealing with the COVID-19 here in Newton Falls. Certainly pay attention to the press conferences the governor has, usually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 or 3 days a week, and the presidential task force. But here in Newton Falls and in our region, things are a little bit different in terms of the nuances of how we deal with things. We've been talking to businesses, gotten a lot of good personal stories, and been talking about the way the financial impact has had an influence on the way people operate in this new coronavirus environment. Well, today we have a guest on our live line who has a very unique story, and this is rather exceptional. On the line with us right now is an individual who is the first Mahoning Valley COVID-19 case. He's the first person to contract it, and he's only the fifth case of COVID-19 in the entire state of Ohio. And this individual lived to tell the tale. He's vertical, up walking around, conducting his business, and quite frankly, because of what he went through, a real inspiration to the rest of us in the Buckeye State. I want to welcome to the live line Kevin Harris. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Kevin, it's great having you on the line. I think about those people who've been in war and they've looked down the dark tunnel of death and faced it down. That's what happened to you, isn't it?
Man, you know what? Nobody ever described it that way, but that's exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
Exactly how it felt.
Kevin, having gone through the trauma of the diagnosis, I remember looking in the newspaper and seeing your plaintive cries that you thought that you were about to face your maker. Describe the experience if you can, and just a brief description, what it was like.
Well, they say when you're about to die, you see your life flash before your eyes.
Yes.
And, I had that at that point, I had several doctors who told me I was the first case. They didn't know what to do. They weren't going to lie to me. They were being honest. And I only had a couple of days to live because I was going downhill very fast and they couldn't do anything about my breathing. So they asked me to be on a ventilator and what could they do, CPR and all that stuff. And I had already heard of people dying, within days of being put on a ventilator, being put in a coma. At that time, they really didn't know what to do medically anywhere in the country. So people were like dropping like flies when they put them on a ventilator. So I said, no, I'm going to die on my feet, saying goodbye to my family. I'm not going to die in a coma on a ventilator. And I went through about 48 hours where I called friends and family. They didn't believe it, because they just couldn't believe that I was actually sick in a hospital. The news was reporting that, I was 55, I had 3 kids and a wife, and all my family was in quarantine, and none of that stuff was true. So people didn't believe it was me when I'm calling them on the phone to tell them I'm about to die. And that was probably the hardest part, is that if you didn't know me very, very personally, first of all, I don't tell jokes, and it was kind of hard to people to say, oh, man, call me back when you quit playing. And I'm going to say that was the hardest thing of all, is telling people you're about to die and you're saying goodbye to them and they don't believe you. And then the ones that do believe you are your family that they won't let come see you. So you're about to die in the hospital alone. And there were probably 6 doctors. I know 3 for sure that weren't even my doctors, that came into the room and said, hey, you need to let them put you on a ventilator. You need to let them, try and save you. And I'm like, it's not saving anybody else. It ain't going to save me. And I'm going to tell you, that was the hardest, decision.
Wow.
One of the hardest decisions I had to make in my life. And to tell my son, my daughters, I have 4 children, and to tell them that I'd rather die than have them put me under and you guys lose me like that. And don't ask me why, but 2 days later, other than the grace of God, I started breathing better and I came back, and no one knows why.
Kevin, that's like an unbelievable story. Kevin, based on what you've said, what would you say to those people that are living in fear that they may be diagnosed and they don't know how to handle themselves when they start getting the medical treatment. What words of advice would you give to them?
Well, David, that's like twofold. In the beginning, my story was, I was kind of like the fear monger, saying this is the worst thing in the world. This is like that clown from the It movies. This is the boogeyman. If you do not protect yourself, he's going to come and get you. If you make fun of it, he's going to come get you. If you think you're impervious and that nothing can happen to you, he's going to come and get you. I run an hour every day on an elliptical machine. I was 212 pounds. I'm 55 years old. My heartbeat at rest is 40 to 47 beats per minute, and I could bench 325 pounds. So I was very healthy, and that virus said, guess what? I'm going to show you what I can do to healthy people. Even though I had a dense heart from a pulmonary artery or coronary artery that goes between my pulmonary artery and the heart muscle, makes my heart really dense. So they thought that would be an underlying condition that would cause me to go under. It actually caused my heart to maintain a steady heart rate. At the time, most people were having cardiac arrest. So that, also helped me. But I tell them about this when I was very fearful of it coming back, of the nightmares, of the, seeing the people that I've talked to who had died. I was in a live interview, and I had spoken to a guy in Stark County. In the middle of the live interview, the reporter says, "Hey, Mr. Harris, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Stark County just died." So every day I'm dealing with death. And over a period of time, I got angry, and then I got mad. And trust me, those are two different emotions. Yeah. And now my thing to people is fight it. I had spoken to several celebrities who had gotten sick, and they were calling and asking me, how did you get through it? And I'm going to tell you, I didn't know how to get through it other than I didn't want to get put on a ventilator. So when I got really, really sick, right before what they considered the heart condition situation where you have the cardiac arrest, I started to throw up. I was having major respiratory issues, and they thought I was, they were already there for everything, to try and bring me back. And I'm telling them, no, I don't want it. And I threw up, and it was the first time in 2 weeks that I could breathe. And instead of a cardiac arrest, every time I got into that situation, I breathed even better. And they found, that's one thing St. Joseph's Hospital did do. They found by keeping me moving, no matter how bad the pain is, that I got better. The pneumonia came out of my lungs. COVID-induced pneumonia is like the worst pneumonia in the world, and it's a double pneumonia all over your lungs. So I tell people, keep moving. If you lay down like the regular flu, like pneumonia, you say, hey, I'm just going to get better when I rest my body, it's not going to happen. This thing lulls you to sleep, because when you lay completely still, the pain goes away. The minute you move your toes, Dave, I'm telling you, I hurt so bad. I don't even have hair on my head, and it hurt. My toenails hurt. How do your toenails hurt? My toenails under the covers were against the blanket, and when I moved my toes and my toenails scraped the blanket, they hurt. That's how much pain it was to move. This virus makes you lay down. And my advice to anybody who thinks they got it, do not stand still. Do not sit still. The more you move, the more you keep it out of your lungs. And that's what you have to do. If it gets into your lungs, you got a less than 50% chance of survival, and the number of the dead will testify to that.
Wow, Kevin, this is a blazingly interesting and impactful series of remarks you're making. Kevin, let me ask you this much, if you know. So how do they, the professionals and or you, how do you think the virus got into your system?
I've been asked that question probably 300 times from people all over the world.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you, I can only name about 5 of them that have printed it or allowed it to come out in an interview. Because I can tell you
well, this is live, Kevin, so tell the world right now.
Okay. Well, let me start with, I typically take days where I don't go out in public. I sit at home for days because I'm really reclusive. I'm really private because I have a very major public life when it comes to my business and my family, my son.
Sure.
So when I want to be Kevin, I just go home and don't go anywhere. So I have been home alone for 6 days. And that, I believe it was the 27th, I had an appointment for my heart. That heart is supposed to kill me, the heart that's been saving my life for the last 55 years. I had an appointment that got canceled at the Cleveland Clinic, but I didn't know. So I went up there. They told me it was canceled. I saw a couple in the elevator. They were so sick, I thought they were fighting because they both looked, tears in their eyes. They were flushed, and they were older couple. They had suitcases with them, so they had been on a trip or were staying at the hospital. I didn't even know. I just spoke to them because I thought I could make them feel better because they looked bad.
Sure.
And they just told me, basically they were sick. They weren't fighting, which was a good thing. But shortly thereafter, they go one way, I go my way. I get on the phone at the Cleveland Clinic about my appointment. They tell me, go home, we'll make another one. I come home 4 days. I didn't go anywhere but to Planet Fitness in Ashtabula at 11 o'clock at night. I literally didn't want to go to the one in Warren or, in Niles because I wanted to be alone. And I know if I go in Niles, I'm going to see 100 friends and want to speak to them. So I went to Planet Fitness in Ashtabula, came home, went in Monday to my body shop at Majestic Auto Body on Parkman Road. I went in and painted a car for the guys. Didn't really talk to anybody because I don't like to talk and paint at the same time. I don't like to deal with the guys and the customers. Luckily for them, because I go home to another job for maybe 2 hours. I get sick that night at the other job. I was at the airport working on a hangar. I'm actually an electrician out of Local 573. So sometimes,
Sure.
even though I'm retired, I help my friends.
That's right.
So I'm helping a buddy of mine. And he says, he looks at me and I'm basically, I got a tickle in my throat. And he says, he's laughing at me because I can't clear my throat. And this is 8 o'clock at night. 2 hours later, I was coughing. I told him I got to go home. I get up Tuesday morning, March 3rd, and had a previous doctor's appointment, again, for my heart that I wasn't going to go to because I'd already been to the clinic and they said, we're coming back. But I went anyway because I got the flu now. They give me Tamiflu. They tell me I got the flu. They don't test me. 6 days later, I'm laying on the floor in my house about to die, and I have a friend pick me up and take me to the hospital. 4 days after that, they tell me I have coronavirus. My point to that whole story is I know exactly where I was and who I saw. And if I saw that couple today, I could point to them and say, hey, you are the guys that I believe affected me, with coronavirus at the Cleveland Clinic. Unfortunately, they are both dead.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, so I don't get to point the finger at them.
Did they die of corona? Do you know, Kevin?
Absolutely.
All right,
Absolutely.
well, let's think about this for a moment. So you've identified twice at the Cleveland Clinic, once at Planet Fitness in Ashtabula, your home, and then this third location where you helped your friend. That's basically all the places you went during that period, right?
Yep, and 2 months later, not one person that I saw during that 10-day span has been sick or had a fever, a cough, or a sore throat.
Except for that couple.
That couple is I met them. Now, how I could have given it to them, I doubt very much. And they were sick as dogs, in that
Kevin,
elevator.
given all the confidentiality on health information, how did you find out that couple passed away?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I get calls from almost every reporter in the state. And some of the internet reporters and the bloggers do a lot of due diligence. And they've asked me several times. I don't mention people's names. I don't mention locations. But because my experience was so unique and they want to talk to me, they tell me, what's going on. I'm in the middle of a live interview and the reporter says, his name was Jordan. He said, I just want to let you know that Stark County died. And that I didn't know how to take that. That, again, that was a live interview on. Yeah,
nobody should be on a live interview and get hit over the head like that.
No. Well, no. I handled it well. I told him afterwards, I said, man, and he said, what, all the emotions that are flowing, he happened to know the family personally, and it had hit him pretty hard because they told him, he saw it on his phone as we were doing the interview. And, I forgive him, and he's a great guy. I just was caught off guard, and I didn't handle it well.
I bet. One of the things the governor's been talking about is all this contact tracing, trying to trace this thing backwards. Have the professionals been talking to you in consistent with what you've been telling us as a way of tracing it back? Has anybody been doing that?
Well, when I first got it, I got a threatening phone call from our health department, which I will one day, play on live television myself. But It was they were telling me, basically, I had lied about not having contact with people because in my normal course of a business day, I see 40 to 50 people, 20 or 30 that I've never met before. I have guys working on construction projects at Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, almost every parts store in the area. Everybody knows me. People see me, and that's how I do my business, by going around and doing that. That's my public appearances all day, dealing with people.
Hey, Kevin,
And then I go home,
every businessman does networking, and that's what you were doing, right?
That's it. Exactly. I told my daughter that yesterday. She laughed.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I was networking, but yeah. And so the CDC says it's not possible you didn't infect anybody. So either you start telling the truth or, bad things are going to happen. So then I get this message on my voicemail from the health department saying, hey, you got 15 minutes to call us. We're going to have to go public and tell everybody who the guy is at the hospital, because people need to come in and know that they've been exposed. I didn't get the message until 3 days later, so I don't know what they did, but I know I did my video that night on March 13th, that Friday, because I wanted my family to know I wasn't denying one of my children, and I wanted my girlfriend to know that I didn't have a wife.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't want to die with those. I don't want to die with those lies out there.
Yeah.
So, and I know it was going to go viral? No, but I get the message threatening to out me on Monday morning, and me and that gentleman had a very good conversation. And the point to this situation is they didn't believe that they talked to 200 people and no one saw me. So everybody said, hey, I didn't see him. So no one had to be isolated or tested, other than one girl who brought me chicken noodle soup 2 weeks before. So basically about a week before, when I was really sick and thought it was the flu.
Yeah.
She actually came to my house and made me soup. They tested her, her children, her grandchildren went to school in Lakeview. Everybody in their family tested fine. No one had any symptoms. They were the only ones that actually came in true contact with me. And the girl who took me to the hospital, her and her family were fine too. And the bottom line was, with all this contact tracing that they're talking about, this is just blubber for the masses. Because I'm telling you, Dave, they can't trace something that's invisible that you don't know you have. It is impossible. When in a businessman like me, on a regular business week, I would have probably infected a couple thousand people in a matter of 4 or 5 days. I just happened to be in one of those moods where I didn't want to be bothered. So that was the miracle in this whole thing, by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Half of the county could be sick now had I been doing regular business, and the way this thing travels, half the county would be sick. We even talked about it with the CDC. We were looking at 400 deaths if I had infected 20 people. Okay? But you see, we don't have 400 deaths, and I didn't infect anybody.
Kevin, it's an unbelievable story. Kevin, after this interview's over, sometime in the next few days, I'd like to get together with you, because I think there's a way for us to publish a book about your experience, and I think it would really be something that's a popular read. So let's get together sometime in the near future. How about that?
It sounds good, Dave.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Now listen, don't want to let you go yet, because this is what really I wanted to ask you about, Kevin. It's almost as though the good Lord up in heaven has got some plans for you. Have you looked at your life a little bit differently, realizing that that might be the message God is trying to send you?
Well, you know what? It's funny you would ask that, because yesterday I was talking to my brothers and sisters, and my brother Edwin and his wife, who they live in Atlanta, and Edwin said, you're the most like our dad of anybody in our family. And I was answering him and saying, that's not true. I ain't nothing like Dad. Dad was so mean and blah, blah, blah. And he says, yeah, well, you act like you mean too. And for the first time in my life, it dawned on me, I am rough around the edges, but I'm good to all my customers. I'm good to all the people that know me. And I'm thinking, my dad was probably the same way. We were kids and we thought it was mean, but he was actually a lovable guy. And so
Yeah.
when I think about that, people always tell me, I probably get 100 people a day saying, this is God using you. God wants you to change your ways.
Yeah.
And Dave, my universal answer is, if I was so bad, God would have let me go. He would have eliminated me so he could set me straight. Instead, he must have liked who I was and what I am. So I'm just going to be more Kevin Harris.
Listen, amen, and preach it, brother. Preach it, really. It's a great message. Well, I will follow up with you the next couple of days after this interview. But I did want to make sure people understood you did all of this, went through all of this in the context of operating a business. You've got a business called Majestic Auto. on Parkman Road in Warren, Ohio. And this falls in the category of the shameless plug. And if anybody deserves, Kevin, if anybody deserves a shameless plug, you do. Tell us about Majestic Auto.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, we opened in '95. We've had our ups and downs. I'm a fourth generation car painter, and I do custom paint jobs for people all over the country. You'd be surprised at where they send me cars from. We also do collision repair, and we have a mechanical division that does, a lot of mechanical work. We're probably one of the least expensive places in the Valley, and, for a major business, and we do lifetime warranty on everything we do. Every customer that comes out, of course, you can't make everybody happy. Anybody trying to make everybody happy ain't going to make anybody happy. But yeah. I'd say most of our customers are happy, and they continue to return time and time again when they have problems, be it mechanical, painting, collision, insurance details. We do a lot of work. And to be frank about it, in about 3 years of us opening, we had enough work to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never catch up. I have a list of 30 cars to paint, and unfortunately, I can only paint maybe 4 cars a month. Yeah. So a whole lot of people won't get their cars painted this year.
Well, Kevin,
and I take my time.
Kevin, after we finish working on your book, we'll get you an appearance on Shark Tank, and you'll be rolling in it.
Oh, Dave, hey, speaking of shameless plugs, I'm doing Japanese television now, okay?
Taiwanese. Get out of here.
And yeah, I know, it's crazy. And I've got a manager who works on the public side of it, which just came out of nowhere. And every day I get an email or a Facebook message. You're the only person I actually spoke to live about, when you mentioned book deal. But my daughter talked to me about it yesterday. Several people contact her and want me to do a book. My life in coronavirus is, one of just a small part of what, really happened, where you could call this thing a miracle. Let me share one more thing with you, if you will.
Sure. Please do.
This heart condition that I have, most people die in their teens playing football, basketball, usually an organized sport. It's that one where your heart just stops in the middle of workouts and you die before you hit the ground. So I broke my back in high school playing organized football, which stopped me from playing it at a high level. So instead of this condition killing me, because no one knew I had it, so instead of it killing me, it made my heart denser, because the coronary artery goes between the heart muscle and the pulmonary artery, and they fight each other when I work out. So it gets denser and denser and stronger. So over the years, the doctors don't even know what's going on. So this happens, and it's discovered in December, and they tell me, you're probably going to die. You should have died by now. You shouldn't even be alive. And then I get the virus, and they say, you're definitely going to die. So we've got to, mitigate this and help you any way that we can. And then when it's all over with, this dense heart of mine decided it doesn't have the virus. It doesn't want the virus. It's not going crazy. The heart rate is not going crazy. My blood pressure, I take blood pressure medicine to keep it down to 120 over 90. While I was in the hospital the whole time, it was 90 over 50 with no medication. My heart just simply didn't want nothing to do with it. That, beyond the miracle of not infecting people, that miracle of a heart that should have killed me when I was 18 and kept me alive through this virus blows my mind.
Well, Kevin, the other takeaway of this whole thing, at least from my perspective, is that you had the courage of your own convictions to seize control of your own medical treatment. And what an outstanding result you had, because you stood up to people that thought they knew better, but something deep in your heart, in your consciousness, told you that the right way to go was to stay off the ventilator in those circumstances. And now you're a shining example of somebody who's willing to listen to the message that's coming to their own sense of self-determination. And Kevin, it's an inspiration. So I will be in touch with you, I promise. And best of all the good luck in the world to you. We'll be talking again, but you've really done a great service to everybody in our community, so they could get a real inside view of what it's like to go through it. And then also combine that with the dynamic personality. You know, listen, you could run for office, Kevin. I'd vote for you.
Well, David, hey, look, after I talked to you yesterday, I talked to a few people, and a lot of people had good things to say about you. And one thing I know for a fact, one thing I like to align myself with, people who understand a real simple motto. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And I know you are one of those people. And when you say I stood up to the medical staff, that's exactly what I told them. I'm going to die wide awake, saying goodbye to my family, than be put under in a coma and no one sees me. And that's a lifelong motto. And I know you probably don't use it, but you do it. So
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Oh, that's outstanding. All right, Kevin, we'll be in touch. Thanks again. Kevin Harris, have a great day today.
Thank you, Dave.
Kevin Harris, what an unbelievable story. Now, folks, we usually go to a second guest at this time, but we're not going to do so because we ran very long with that interview, and it was gripping. I don't know how else to describe it. It was gripping. And if anybody doesn't maybe have a little tear in their eye in understanding the roller coaster of emotions that Kevin went through and the message that he has to deliver, having come out the other end, well, then you don't have a heart yourself if you weren't grabbed by what we just experienced. And I know that all the folks in Newton Falls will take some benefit of that. And as I say in each one of these programs, as we get to the conclusion, again, that interview even tells you more so. Stay in touch with God. He's always in the driver's seat. So as it's in that famous country song, let him take the wheel. But you got to be in prayer in order to do that. So as we say at the end of each one of these editions, God bless America and God bless the city of Newton Falls.